Okay, so the genesis of this is two things. One, I think towards the end of last year, probably some of you were here, Brian Cardarella gave a great talk on Elixir and Phoenix, which got a lot of us excited. And also, I started playing a game called Timeline. This is a game where you have cards. On one side is just a historical event like the Battle of Hastings, and the other is the actual year, which happened, in that case, of course, 1066, as I'm sure you all know. I got this game because I'm kind of well, I can get cantankerous about certain things, like when my wife doesn't also remember that the Battle of Hastings was 1066, so I thought this would be a good way we could learn things and bond together. Still a work in progress, like the add-on, but it's going okay. So what are Phoenix channels? I guess in communication between computer systems, there are mainly two models, as I'm sure most of you know. There's pull and there's push. I guess back in .com 1, there were a bunch of pub-sub, push-style startups, but they mainly went to things like Tibco. They mainly went to specialized applications like financial systems, which really needed that back and forth. The web, which most of us have been using, has been generally a pull model. Like you go to Amazon, click on the page, you say, I want to search for games, I want to search for timeline. You send a request, you get a response back. Oh, I want to buy it. You enter in the stuff in a form, and you get a response. Recently, people are realizing that pub sub and push has been around in the web. You get your sports scores, stock tickers, things like this. But people are realizing that this is actually a very convenient thing and making it more front and center. So you're getting things like WebSockets. And with Phoenix, you're getting something like channel. Even older frameworks like Rails are doing things like action cable. But with Phoenix, they have this thing called channels. Basically, it is a socket built on top of a WebSocket in this case, and it gives you full bidirectional stuff, so it's very easy for things like a game where you're not making all the moves, someone else might be making the move, but you want to be informed of what is happening. So that is what channels are for, and this add-on makes it easy to use channels with Ember. So it's really doing just two things. One thing, there is a Phoenix.js NPM and Bower module. So the one thing is just wrapping that. And you'll see here, this is the index.js file. This is how you wrap things. The documentation for this stuff, it's fairly good, but you do have to read it carefully because there are a lot of different styles. This is an AMD file. For other, required JS and various other things, you would do this a little differently. When you're doing this, one other thing you have to remember, if you want your application not to have to require a file like this, is you have to put this in your blueprint, like this. This took me a little while to figure out. I don't know whether it was either documentation or me being ADD and not reading carefully. But one thing to remember, and if you are linking locally, as you're often doing when you're developing something like this, you will have to do an Ember generate your add-on name to add this file to the Bower file of your consuming app, because it doesn't do this automatically, apparently. Okay, so this is the meat. Besides including the file, these are a few little convenience things which the add-on does. Get channel just gives you a reference to the channel once you've created it. Connect to your socket, something you would always probably want to do. And then the ability to join a channel. So basically what it is, you will have a socket connection to your server, and then you can join whatever channel you want. You can think of this kind of like a chat room. You say, I want to join the Ember, CLI chat room, and then, you would have a topic saying Ember CLI. If you wanted to join the architecture room, then you'd have something like that, architecture. So each topic would be, something it's something you are listening on. And one other thing is this channel topic handlers, which this is just an array or a hash, which I'll show you later, which allows you to kind of group and organize the messages you're getting on your channel. Okay, so questions so far? No? Everyone good? Okay, so that was the add-on. This is the actual application. So this is called Timeline. There are actually two applications in this folder, but one is Timeline, which is the Ember app. The other is Phoenix Timeline, which is the server app. So here I've overridden or extended the channel service from the add-on with this channel topic handler. And we have this game hash where you see we have various events which you will see in action, like adding a player, that the game started, and the results of turns. So when you want to create a game, you would go in this method over here. Can everybody see this? Is this big enough? Yep. Okay. So in the beginning, just your standard HTTP, standard XHR call. You have a game, you save the game, and then when that comes back with you as the player, and then this join game method. This join game goes to a service called this game service, which handles connecting to the channel. Here we have join game. And here we're actually using the channel. So we're getting the channel, we are connecting, we are joining this game channel, which has the game ID, so that's telling the channel which game. And then we're keeping a reference to the channel in this game service. Just to look at some Phoenix. So when we make the initial request, so here, for everyone familiar with Rails, should be fairly, you can recognize the general structure. We have this create method over here. We are getting our request with something called matching. So this expression over here is actually matching the request which is getting sent in, and if you see this code over here, that is getting defined. It's kind of like destructuring, so for people familiar with that, it's very similar. You're inserting the game, and then in this game channel, which is another kind of basic, in addition to controllers, models, views, you also have channels in Phoenix. You have a whole set of handlers on the server side. Here you're joining the game, so game with the game ID. And then later when you get messages like, say, start game, place card, which correspond nicely to what we're sending over here, or pushing, you will get things like start game and place card. Now generally when you have a message here, for instance, start game, the channel will broadcast something on the socket, for instance, a game started. And the nice thing about when you override the channel service is you can just write handlers over here with the various, for these various topics in the channel. Okay? So, to see it in action, here we have me and Lily, my wife. We're going to play together. Now, this is still very work in progress, so not everything works, but as you will see when we join this game, so Lily got the response back that now she's joined the channel. or she got the response back who she is, and now she got the channel. And I got the message that she has joined the game. And then we can start the game. And we both get the game board. Okay, so let's see, Vesuvius eruption. So here's the timeline over here. The idea of the game is you have events on the timeline and you have to place the card correctly on the event. So, you know, the graphics right now are not all that great. I really would like to do something, maybe drag and drop or whatever, something. But right now we have just that you can place the card here or there. So Lindbergh becomes first to fly across the Atlantic. Gee, was that before or after Vesuvius erupting back in ancient Rome? After?
Definitely before.
Anyone want to use their lifelines? Okay, let's try here. We'll place it there. Whoa! Okay, and you see both people got this event. There's no real concept of whose turn it is yet, so we'll just play one side. Well, I guess we can play Lily, but as you see that 10, that means that I have 10 cards, and that should go down, but it has not gone down yet. Okay, the Tri-N-J factory fire in New York City, right here in New York City. This was, anyone know? Huh? Middle? I think it is the middle. Let's see. It's definitely, well, it's, you know, it has that nice fire theme with Vesuvius, but definitely before, so I think that was, oh my God, and more fire. Okay, Nero versus Vesuvius. Anyone? Anyone who gets this? I don't know. Luke might be willing to give you a sticker. I'm going to go with before Vesuvius. Whoa! Okay. So anyway, that's the way, basically the way it works. Now, one thing, it's kind of a, you know, you can see all these messages in the console, but especially if you're getting things like heartbeats, it can really clutter things up. So one kind of little convenience I did was this socket message log. That is a component in the add-on, and if you download and use the add-on, you get that for free, no additional cost. Okay, so I'm going to you know, style it a little. I mean, you can always style it in your app, but for something, you know, really which you won't be putting in a real app, you probably want to have some default style. So as you can see, we are getting things. So let's place another card. Congress establishes New York, the U.S. Mint, I think goes here. So as you can see, we push that. I guess that didn't, right, because this was pushed here. Here you see Congress establishes, oh no, I guess that's the receipt. Here's the push. This is the position 1, and then both clients will get the receipt that the last card and that it was correct. So this is basically works. There's a lot of customization, particularly with things like logging, but just in general, there's a bunch of things that can be done with this. One thing which is kind of nagging me, it's probably okay for now, but this game, this game type, if you attach another channel to this, it would be using the same set of handlers. So you would, at this point, you would want to keep them stateless. Obviously, since this is using the same game service up here, that is not stateless. So that was something where, you know, do you want to make that more explicit, or, you know, have ways to make it stateful as part of the add-on, stuff like that. Additional patterns, I think, or something which could extend this and make it more useful. So that's pretty much it. Questions?
Questions for Michael. That was really cool. Oh, hold on. Question up front, then we'll go to Garb.
Is the game, like the timeline game, when it comes out, is it going to be like, where is it going to be?
It will be online, so you can play it, and I will definitely let Luke know where it is. So We can all, you guys can play with Julius and Isabella.
Hey, Michael, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how much do you think Phoenix helped you build this app, and what made Phoenix a good choice?
Well, I mean, I think the fact that just channels are a first-class object. You know, Rails is now adding stuff like Action Cable, but Phoenix, it's all there. They have a node module which I was able to easily add to my add-on. So, and just in general, you know, Rails is a great framework. Phoenix, the performance looks to have a lot of promise. You know, you're kind of getting into this whole debate of functional versus object-oriented. You know, for the last 30 years, object-oriented has been, you know, the paradigm, and now there's kind of a move where it's saying, well, maybe we want to question that. Maybe the fact that, you know, we can't reason about state when all these things are encapsulated is not as good as we thought. So, you know, I think it's really way too early to say one way or the other that either one is the best thing, and probably at the end of the day you'll have some mix, and both will influence each other, as often is the case. But it's really, you know, it's a very interesting new way of looking at things, or looking back at things the way, you know, Erlang, I think, is, I had another timeline which I erased for some reason, which had things like, when did Erlang come out and when did C++ come out? And I think maybe Erlang was 76. I guess Lisp was 58, because Lisp is functional, and that's the lineage of Erlang. But I guess Erlang was, I believe, before C++. So anyway.
Can we use your screen to show a couple of relevant things?
Yes.
Can you pull up and open up a browser and
Sure.
pull up Empire Elixir?
Oh, yes, Empire Elixir. Are you going?
I don't know yet, but there we go. Cool.
Got it.
So a bunch of folks that we know, including Lee in the back, are helping to organize Empire City Elixir Conference 2016. It's happening on May 21st. Tickets are available now. Anything else we should say? It's going to be awesome. Really good group of folks organizing. And do you want to come up and share some other Phoenix stuff going on?
Hey, my name is Willie, and I don't think there's too many tickets left for MPEX either, right? Is there many left, or?
Are there tickets left for it? There are?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Going fast.
Yeah, going fast, I guess, is what I wanted to say. So I help run, my name's Willie, I help run the Phoenix meetup in New York City. So if you're interested in hearing more about what you saw tonight, we run our meetups on the first Monday of every month, and we have a hack night on the second Monday of every month. And there's also an Elixir meetup and an Erlang meetup. So pretty much, you know, one day of the week, you know, all month, there'll hopefully be something on what you saw here. And then in addition to MPEX, we're also running a Phoenix camp and an Elixir camp at a large open source conference that I run this summer called Open Camps. So if you go to opencamps.org, the overall conference is running from July 8th to the 17th. And we host that at the United Nations, and pretty much all the conferences are free. So we're running a front-end conference that'll have some Ember stuff. And then if you go to phoenix.camp, there's a Phoenix camp, or elixircamp.io is the Elixir camp. So, and if you want to get involved or you have any questions, I'll be around if you want to chat. So, and thanks a lot to Lee for putting this on.
Yeah, thanks, Willie. Very cool. Great. Let's have another round of applause for Michael and have Gaurav come up.
So I'm going to be showing off Alex Machner's Ember concurrency in my Ember Twiddle app. This happens to be a commit I put in about a month ago, actually a little more than that, March 7 to be exact. And this allowed me to, this actually just put Ember concurrency into Ember Twiddle. And as you can see, it was really simple to do. We just converted the build app function from a from a regular method to a task. We got rid of this.get is destroyed because Ember concurrency can take care of that for us. We replaced the call to the promise with a yield statement of the same promise. We put that in a try-catch block instead of catching for errors. And we put what was going to be done in the then block between the try and the catch. And rebuild app was also a very similar story. We took it and we replaced a call to ember.run.debounce with a timeout, which is a promise that returns after a certain amount of time. For those of you who don't remember Alex Machnier's presentation, in order to call a task, you just call .perform, and that will run the task and return a promise. So this effectively makes build app a child task of rebuild app, but it's not always used that way. And then everywhere I called build app or rebuild app, I just added .perform at the end of it. And in Ember CLI build, I had to include polyfill for Babel. And then, of course, I had to add Ember concurrency into the package JSON. That's how simple it was to take Ember concurrency and put it into Ember Twiddle. It literally took me 10 minutes to do. But what's amazing was the benefit that I got out of it. And here's what the benefits were. Before I go on, let me show you the very next commit. I just added the word restartable at the end of my rebuild app task. And the result is I can now hit this space as many times as I like, and Twiddle won't rebuild as long as I'm typing, which is amazing and I wasn't doing that before I put in Ember concurrency. Another real thing that I found as soon as I used Ember concurrency was I was getting trolled in all my tests with hitting set when the object was destroyed, even though I had a test for the object was destroyed. This just completely got rid of all those problems. So this is a really amazing add-on, and I really have to thank Alex Mechnier for putting all his time and effort into making this awesome. In this Twiddle, you can also see that I'm running an example of Ember concurrency right in the Twiddle, so this is really meta because it's Twiddle running concurrency inside Twiddle running concurrency. And that's running all on Ember CLI. So it's great to see that. I just think Ember concurrency solves so many problems that you don't even realize. And I've included Ember concurrency in all kinds of other parts of my app. The resize screen, the resizable columns work better. We now have, when add-on builds, we can keep retrying and checking whether the add-on has built yet. And even if it takes 100 seconds to build, I can show you it's still building. And all this stuff is made so easy because of Ember concurrency. So I think you should all be using it, and it's great. Thank you.
Let's see if people have questions before you unplug me. Whoop, sorry.
Well, I unplugged anyway, but
No problem.
any questions?
Questions for Garv?
So I'm somewhat new to Ember. So could you give like sort of a beginner's explanation of what Ember concurrency does?
Okay, so Alex Machnier has explained this at least twice here at Ember NYC conference. But basically, Ember concurrency is an Ember add-on that allows you to take care of all kinds of problems with asynchronous code within Ember. One of the things that promises cannot do by default is they're simply not cancelable. So Ember concurrency introduces the concept of a cancelable task, where if, for example, the host object of your host component is no longer on the screen, and you sent off an AJAX request, normally when you get a response, weird things happen because in an normal AJAX application, you have no way of canceling that promise. So one of the things Ember concurrency does for you is the moment the host component is no longer on the screen, it's been destroyed, it automatically cancels the promise. And it's not a real cancellation in the sense that the XHR request is canceled, but it's as if when the XHR promise comes back, it will simply not execute any additional code. So it's as if the promise was canceled. And there are so many other benefits. Just the way Alex says, it solves all kinds of problems you just didn't even know you had. What if somebody hits the back button while you're loading? What if somebody hits the forward button, back and forward button repeatedly while all kinds of AJAX requests are going on? In an Ember app, in a single page application, that doesn't unload the application. It doesn't reload the page. So those AJAX requests keep firing, and they keep coming back. So these kinds of problems are just taken care of automatically by Ember concurrency.
Add a couple of things to Garv's summary. One is that if you have read about or experimented with JavaScript generators, Ember concurrency leverages generators to do its thing, for the syntax to do its thing. And then the second thing I would say, which you saw in Garv's code, is that any Ember app that's been around for a while and has become stable from use and bug reports is filled with checks for if this dot is destroyed or this dot is destroying. And it's a drag, and Ember concurrency provides kind of a way out for that because of its kind of awareness of the lifetime of its host object, paired with the awareness of asynchrony going on with that object. Cool, I have a question for you, Garv. You mentioned that the Ember concurrency enabled that behavior where, like, as long as you're typing, it wasn't running the build. And I saw in your code you also had like debounce. You were using debounce. Is that the same thing?
So I took out
different?
debounce.
Okay, got it.
And I put in the task.
Yep.
And then I said yield timeout and then yield the promise in my rebuild app task. So that provided exactly the same behavior as debounce. Mm-hmm. But what I added to it was the restartable method that hooks onto the end of the function object.
And what does that do?
And what that does is every time you hit a button, it cancels the current task and starts a new one.
I gotcha. Cool. Good stuff. Any other questions on this one? All right, let's go to Jorge. Thanks, Garv.
Hi. So let me start off by introducing myself real quick. My name is Jorge Davila. I'm currently the CTO at a startup called Mom Nearest, and also the Ember NYC organizer with Luke and Kevin. I've known Luke for a while now. I was interning at Yap like 4 years ago. I like music, soccer, and technology, like all kinds of technology, like Ethereum, anything that has to do with like venture capital, anything that has to do with tech. So if you like any of those things, we should talk and be cool with each other. I'm not a very good public speaker either, just FYI. So so one of the things that Ember CLI solves is like how to develop Ember applications and like dev-wise. And like I guess another thing that Ember has solved is how to authenticate users, which is like I remember it being pretty hard before Ember Simple OAuth, at least from my experience. So this is my Nearest application. So here, you have a content site, and let's say you want to like do something that requires some sort of authentication, whether it be favoriting a place, if you're reading an article and then you want to bookmark it, you want to be able to authenticate somehow. And that's pretty much solved in Ember. Like, at least, like, I don't even think about that when I start a new project. I just know I'm going to go with Ember Simple Auth because it's like very, very easy to do. So just log in, and then boom, you're able to like easily bookmark your whatever, and then here's your bookmarks and stuff. So I just wanted to go over like how Ember Simple Auth is sort of built. That way, whenever you guys start a new Ember application and you guys are trying to figure out the authentication side of things, then you have a better idea. So Ember Simple Auth was developed by Simple Labs, this guy named Marco, and people who have contributed, the community. And there are 4 main parts of this add-on. And that's the session store, the authenticator, and the authorizer. And I'm just going to briefly go through each of them. And keep in mind, this is 1.0. So if you have an application that's pre-1.0, it's a little different. But I think it's a lot cleaner, though, like the way it's newly refactored. The session store is essentially it's a persistent layer that I'm sorry, let me start off with the session. The session is essentially what you interface in your application code. So it's basically it's a service that you inject in your app that you're able to either get the data that's in the session store, or you're able to authenticate, invalidate, and these are authorize. So this is pretty much what you really interface with in your code. The session store is how you store that in your browser, whether it be local storage, cookie, or you can create your own custom store. This is for like testing. That way it's in memory, so whenever you reload the page or exit, like it goes away. The authenticator is essentially the layer that communicates with the service that you're authenticating against, whether it be your backend or Facebook or GitHub or whatever. And then out of the box, you have 3 that you can implement in your app: device, Tori, and OAuth 2. Or you can create your own, which all you literally have to do is write 3 methods, which is what we did at Mobiledoc. It's just very easy to like create your own authenticator. And the authorizer is essentially the thing that injects, or that this is like actually like it's optional. You don't actually have to do this. But if you wanted to inject some sort of data into your headers, this does it for you. So we use a device authorizer. And I guess one thing that bit us was the fact that before, like every AJAX request, they used to insert the data into the headers, but it stopped doing that, especially when you have just like one-off promises, like that's not part of the Ember data. So then you have to do that manually. And then you have extra settings that you can configure in your environment.js. So the long story short is you don't have to worry about authenticating when building an Ember app. Yeah.
Any questions for Jorge? Ember Simple Auth? All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, so we've got one more talk before our break, and that's we've got Hassan. And I don't even know what Hassan's going to talk about. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Great. Okay, so my name's Hassan, and I work at Monograph. I also work at CardStack. I have 2 jobs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about an add-on that I love that I use at both my jobs. All right, so this first app that we're looking at is basically, it's like we're rebuilding WordPress, but with Ember and Drupal. The add-on I'm going to talk about is called mobiledoc, and it was made by the kind folks at 201 Created and Bustle Labs. And so mobiledoc is basically like your WYSIWYG editor in your browser. So it's similar to like TinyMCE. But the difference with mobiledoc is that instead of using content editables, it uses JSON. And so in that way, it's a lot more predictable in terms of how it's going to behave. And you're not actually going to serialize things with HTML in your backend. You're going to use JSON, which everyone loves. Okay, so let me show, so I'm just going to show you real quickly, make this a little bigger here. This is where you can find the add-on for mobiledoc. And using mobiledoc is really simple. Basically, you install the add-on, and then you just do this mobiledoc editor. Now, you can certainly bind other variables to it to get more functionality, but that's really all you're doing. And so once you do that, then you end up with something like this, where you can, and what I have here is a way of actually kind of seeing what is going on. So on the left-hand side, you can see my little area where I can edit content. In the middle, you can see how it's serialized. This is the JSON document that represents my rich text. And on the right-hand side, you can see how it's rendered. In this case, I'm rendering it as a DOM, but I could also render it as text. So it's, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but it is pretty cool. I highly recommend you take a look at it. We've leveraged it on our WordPress-like application. Just going to go into this little editing mode. Going to choose a document to edit. And so basically, I can just start typing on the page, blah, 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 blah. We have a few interesting mechanisms that allow us to like change the style of the page. Maybe we want to add an image. Maybe we don't. Maybe I want to copy and paste from another page. I'm going to do that. I'm just putting random stuff in here, but bear with me. But so yeah, so the idea is that it works like a rich text editor on your browser. So that's kind of interesting. Another more, I guess, crazy way of using it is that at Monograph, one of the things we're doing is we're getting into the business of building apps with apps, kind of like Yap, but not Yap. And so what we looked at is that wouldn't it be cool to have something like mobiledoc actually be a way of serializing an app? So if you're going to build an app with another app, maybe you can use a mobiledoc editor to do that. So what I actually have here, this is very cutting edge. We're just bringing this out now. And let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Great. So this right here is an application that we actually built, and it lets you play music. It is actually going to play. You can swipe around. You can watch videos or not. But the idea is that you can actually assemble this app using mobiledoc. And so I can take a look right here, and this I'm just jumping in the database. I'm going to just dump it right here. This is the serialization of that app that I just had. And so the idea is that it's actually pulling a lot of rich text for the copy. We're actually pulling identifiers from our media library. We're inserting different Ember components for more richer behavior. And we're automatically depositing, video players and audio players into the app. So it's neat that we're kind of pushing mobiledoc to the edge of like what it certainly wasn't ever intended for this, but we're interested and we're just playing around. Anyways, that was a real quick tour into my favorite add-on, mobiledoc. So thank you.
Questions for Hassan? All right, we're going to take a little break. So let's say 5 minutes, and then we'll get back together. And if you have something that you would like to share, find me during the break, and we'll get you on the list. Thanks, everybody. Good stuff.
So I work for Condé Nast. Do people know who that is? Who knows? Who does not know who that is? Oh, only one person. Great. Does that work? Awesome. Just a short announcement. We launched our blog, so it's engineering.condenast.io if you guys wanted to learn a little bit more about what we're doing on the engineering side. We are hiring in New York and in Texas, Austin. So let me know if you have any questions. So today I want to talk a little bit about an add-on that we built for our content platform. It's not open source as of yet, but if people like it, like what they hear tonight, then we'll make some moves to actually open source it. The add-on is basically an image cropper that wraps this guy's jQuery cropper. That's a Feng Yuan Chen guy. It's a pretty popular plugin that people use, but we wanted to use it in our Ember application, so we created an add-on for it. So why would a content platform need a cropper, an image cropper? If you take one of our properties, for example, Architectural Digest, right? They have these beautiful photos. Each photo, right, has different usages across the site and across different distribution channels. For example, maybe your mobile phone or Facebook Instant or Apple News. There's different renditions or aspect ratios you need to cut for every single photo. For example, if we look at this photo, right, it's a very long one. When you actually click into the article, you get kind of a little bit of a shorter one. And so this is our CMS. That picture is this picture here, this beautiful picture. And this picture here represents the 2x1. This is the 2x1 that you see here. You can navigate to different aspect ratios to select it and manipulate it. So this 2x1 has a lot of ceiling, and maybe we don't really want to see so much ceiling, so we can drag it down and just save it. And then when you refresh here, there's not as much ceiling. You get more floor. So the component itself, if that's not the component, is actually quite simple. It basically just registers the plugin and takes in the actions from your application and passes it on to the plugin options. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Christina? All right, cool. Thank you. That's me. I'm supposed to pay attention to who's next. All right. Testing 1, 2, good. Hey, I'm Luke. I'm going to talk about Ember Collection, which I've been doing a bunch of work with the last couple of weeks over at Yap. And there's some things about it that are just really elegant that I've really been enjoying, and so I wanted to try to point out one of those today. So Ember Collection, for those of you who don't know, is a Ember core-ish project. It's probably one of the gets the least love and effort out of any of the Ember core projects, unfortunately. This is mostly due to time constraints. But it is quite useful. Basically, what it does is it lets you present very long lists or grids, potentially large lists or grids of items, and only render what needs to be visible to the user. Recycles DOM as you scroll around that list or grid. And so if you've ever tried to render a long list in Ember, actually just a quick show of hands, who's tried to do that? How did it go the first time? Tough, yeah. It's can be a little slow, can be frustrating. So some quick demos from the dummy app, the Ember Collection. So this is just 600 items or so, lots of items. It can kind of adjust stuff, and what we can do just to kind of prove to ourselves of what Ember collection is doing here. Let's go and find. So we can see a bunch of cells here. As we scroll around, you can see them being manipulated, but it's not growing. It's the same number of cells that always are present. And the number that we're seeing is what's on screen plus a buffer that Ember collection maintains for you kind of above and below what's on screen, so that as you scroll up or down, the thing that is about to come on screen is already rendered and ready to go. When you try to do this technique without a buffer, then you end up not quite being ready to show the thing that you need to show. So that's the quick overview of Ember collection. What I really want to show today is Ember collection's concept of layouts. And a layout is basically a cell layout, is how this is put together. So this is a grid that's, I guess, probably 3 by 1, or nope. So it's actually a grid that's a fixed size, and it fits as many across as the container is wide. We can change those dimensions, and it automatically adjusts for you. So let's look at some code. This is Ember collection's code base itself. It ships with a few layouts. So it has a grid, a mixed grid, and a percentage columns layout. So the grid layout here, we're just gonna browse real quickly through to see what are if you wanted to implement a layout, what are some of the methods that you would be implementing? You'd be implementing index at, so if we're given offset of x and y with a given width and height, what is the first index that you're seeing of which item? The height, given a particular index, what is the height of that object? What's the width of an object at a particular index? And mostly you'll see this particular implementation is delegating to this.bin. And this is using a library that Stefan Panner wrote called Layout Bin Packer, which implements a couple of algorithms for kind of packing cells together that may or may not be the same size. So it turns out that this layout thing is pretty powerful. This mixed grid one is an example of when they are different sizes. And so the idea is that you would provide content to the layout, and the content is expected to know, you can't actually see it in this code base because it's passed to this shelf first algorithm, but this content object is expected to have a width and height for each of the objects in it. And so then the layout can use that to figure out how to render. So I had a passing familiarity with this layout idea, but I rediscovered it recently when I wanted to use Ember collection to do a layout kind of like this. And so this is our a schedule screen of a app that you could create with Yap. And you'll notice that we have header rows and kind of entry rows or event rows. And we group them together based on day, which kind of makes sense. What you can't I guess you can probably see it in this on screen right now, is that the header rows are a little shorter than the other rows. And that's not super easy to do with the layouts that came out of the box. And so I said, well, what would it look like to try to create my own layout that could I accomplish this relatively easily? So here's my template. I have a subclass of basically of Ember collection. It's a little more complicated. I'm gonna gloss over that for now. Point is that I have a cell layout here that I'm passing to it, and I am providing it with a cell layout via a helper called list with headers layout that I'm passing in my list items to, and I'm also passing in the width. And so this list with headers layout, let's go take a look at what that implementation is. So this is a super simple Ember helper. It expects content and width passed to it, and all it's doing is it's constructing a new list with headers object with those arguments. So let's jump to list with headers. And so this is something that implements the same API. Powerful is that Ember Collection can render at any point in that list. It can use this information to mathematically figure out what to show, right? Because imagine if I have a schedule that's 100 screens long, and I quickly scroll down to the middle. It needs to be able to do the math to figure out what cells stacked up should be visible, and then render those DOM elements. And so this kind of approach lets us do that. So that was, when I did this, it was like, it ended up being, that was a lot easier than I thought it was, which was, always a nice experience to have as a developer. But I later really decided I was going to put this to the test, because on our people UI, this is a people page that has 461 people in it. And the middle section is actually really easy because this list of people is fixed height. So I'm pretty sure that I just used one of the out-of-the-box layouts on this one. Actually, we can take a quick look. People list, template. Cell layout, yep. So fixed grid layout is one of the things that Ember Collection ships with. And I'm saying that it's a fixed width of 320 and a height of 69. So that was fine. But then over here on the right, let me see if I can just make this bigger. I can. Over here on the right is a list of the same people. It's designed to let you see a little bit more information, delete records, but also, and most importantly, I can drag these around and reorder them, reorder the people in the list. And so I was really stuck on how to do this, and in fact, there was a point in time not too long ago when each time I dragged one of these things, the app just kind of stuck there for, I don't know, Chris, how long was it? Or Ray, like 10 seconds? It was pretty brutal. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? I was thinking, is there a way I can combine Ember Collection so I can get like a quick initial render of this with Ember Sortable, which is an add-on that I really love, talking about awesome add-ons. Ember Sortable is great. But Ember Sortable just like did not really fit this model because it was very much wanted to hang on to the kind of component, move it around, and then send up information at the end of what it was doing. Whereas I wanted this to be able to do things like drag through this list, hold it down here, keep dragging, render new stuff that wasn't rendered previously, and then drop it somewhere. So the idea that I decided to try, and it worked pretty well, as you can see, is to use a layout for this. So let's take a look at that layout. So this is people well component template. So here's my virtual sortable list, and I pass in a cell layout using this reorderable list layout helper. And this, just like the other example we saw, just delegates to a reorderable list helper or layout. But this thing then gets a little crazy because what you're providing to it is a content width and row height, which is very similar to the other layouts we saw, but also what is the moving item and what is the moving item's y coordinate. And so then the math in here that it's doing is figuring out where to put all this stuff. And the way that it's figuring it out is it's saying that if it's the moving item, so if the index matches the moving item index, then the position of that item is going to be the moving item's position. Otherwise, see if I can remember where this code was. forgetting where the code actually is that adjusts the other part of the cell. But basically, the amazing thing here, to me at least, it was amazing, is that this helper dynamically regenerates when any of the things that I'm passing it changes. So I'm passing it the list of items to show the width, the row height, the moving item, and the moving item Y. Now this moving item Y is changing every time I get a mouse move event as I'm holding onto this item, which means that this whole helper right here is recomputing every time I get that mouse move event, which means that I'm constructing a new layout object every time that I have a mouse move event. And yet, because all this is doing is basically like simple JavaScript object instantiation and math, it's fast enough to have the experience that I just showed you. So that was pretty awesome. So I thought it would qualify as an awesome add-on. And I'm happy to chat more about this later, but I just wanted to give you all a taste of that experience. Thanks. So let's get Scott up, and I can take a question while Scott's getting set up. Here, we'll put this down. Here you go, Alex.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did you find it difficult to make your own list layouts? Because I know Ember Collection comes with just a handful, and you wrote 2 of them.
Yeah,
it looked
so
like for that
I
application.
mostly started with an existing one, and then tried changing things until it did what I want or didn't do what I want. And in the process of doing that, obviously, I learned how this stuff works. So I would say no. The layout stuff in particular is some of the least difficult aspect of working with Ember Collection. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So you said you had to do a little bit of extra work when the header heights were different from the heights of each of the individual people. Do you imagine this add-on would work well? Can you imagine any way to make this work if the heights were very unpredictable?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a very common question, and probably one of the big digs on Ember Collection. But because it relies on being able to mathematically compute kind of where everything is, if that's impossible to do, then it can't be done. Right. Now, there's the Smoke and Mirrors add-on is something to take a look at. What they do is they actually render and off screen and measure the DOM. Yeah. Obviously, that's going to be like a order of magnitude of different, performance or duration to do.
We have issues that are very related to that we might end up using Smoke and Mirrors to solve. But
I mean, so one thing to consider, like a lot of SDKs that do non-web stuff that try to accomplish this. And I think even like the way this is what Facebook does also, or at least at some point did, is you take your content and you come up with mathematical things that you can derive based on just the data without actually having to lay it out. Because it's going to lay out the same way every time in theory, given the same dimensions. Yeah. And so if you can decide that, okay, a tweet that's X number of characters is this tall, then you can use that information. So, all right, you got it. Let's move on. Oh, which would you prefer? That should work if you tap the bottom till it goes green. Yep.
Hello. Oh, excellent.
All right, Scott Norville.
So, Chris, excellent question. Funny you should ask. We're working on the exact same problem. My name is Scott Norville. I work with I worked at Condé Nast as well. I work on an app called The Scene, which is a video app. Condé Nast has a bunch of brands, and we produce a lot of video, and we have a lot of friends, and all of our video content is on this app called The Scene. The Scene is about 2 or 3 years old, maybe, I don't know. And this is I guess we're calling it version 2. So we've introduced some social features and things like that. In particular, one of the things you can do is save videos to watch later, because I don't know how often you've been on mobile and been saving, oh, it's a really great video, I definitely want to watch that later. So as you save videos, you can watch later, and hopefully that video I just saved is there. Maybe it's this one. One of the things we really thought would be important was, okay, now that I'm at this page of videos that I've saved, there's a good chance that the user doesn't actually know I'm in an Ember app and is just going to right-click and open this up in another tab. And there's a lot of things you can do with this video, and keeping that in sync with another tab, and hopefully this works live right here. But so I've gone ahead and so hopefully, yeah, okay, there was the video I just saved. So I've gone ahead, I have an extra tab open over here. So imagine I'm watching a video on this tab, and I click on this tab, and it just pops right in there. I actually have, there's some options where I can follow brands and things like that, and those are all synchronizable. Can anyone guess what amazing technology we might have used to do this? No, older than that. Older than that. Okay, local storage, yay. So hence my tricky test. The local storage is really an old technology, but a goodie. Basically, you can store things just like cookies and stuff like that in local storage, but you also get this really cool thing called a storage event. And on the storage event, it's actually designed to only fire in other tabs, not the tab that you're in. And when I learned about this originally, I was like, I'm gonna have to figure out, like, when this storage event fires, I'm gonna have to figure out if I'm in the current tab, and if I'm in the current tab, don't. But then I was like, oh wait, it already does that. And so it's really cool, but then the tricky part is, how do you test it? So let's see, which way is that? Okay, here we go, I'm gonna make this one bigger. So the first part, let me make this a little bit bigger. Is that good? Okay, so the first part was I made a couple of helpers called stub local storage. You guys have seen these sorts of things before. You grab the old version of local storage, and then you overwrite it, and here we're just basically like when we call stub local storage, we're just writing things into a memory store. And then on restore local storage, if we have stubbed local storage, we just put those functions right back. You've seen that before. Now my secret sauce here is this function called trigger storage. And I really wanted to, there was a lot of really complicated things that were happening on that storage event, so I wanted to make sure that I could effectively test that. And I did some Googling around, and I actually found, where is it? I think it's on this side. Let me make this one bigger. I actually found there was a Stack Overflow question where somebody was like, I know that the storage event fires in a second window, but how can I make it fire on this window? And this person answered this question, and he said that you can basically like fake an event and like basically fake a jQuery event and build it like this. And he actually got trolled because you're like, you didn't answer that question. And as you can see, I gave him a thumbs up, and down here I actually made a little comment that said, well, this didn't actually answer the question, but it answered my question about how do you test local storage. So basically what his version, so on a jQuery storage event, you get, you actually, in order to get the information about the storage event, you have to go into the original event property. And so this is basically just creating a fake jQuery event, and it's giving it an original event property of the things that you expect. And I think all I cared about was, let's see, this is mine, okay. So all I actually cared about was the key and the new value. And this is, this here is a basic example of one of the tests of things that happen. You can see that I'm actually, I've stubbed out the local storage, I'm storing things, and then down here I actually trigger storage of the storage key and the actual items that I expect. And then I can actually assert that those events actually played back and that I actually got that back. So that's that. Tricky tests. Any questions? In the back?
Sorry, yeah. So at what points are you trying to, are you replacing local storage or what?
Oh, so actually at the beginning, so I actually run, So if you go back to this, I actually wrote it as a registered helper, but then I also export the raw functions. And so in acceptance tests, I can actually just call stub local storage and all my before each calls. And then and this is actually a unit test. And so you see I'm importing stub local storage, restore local storage, and then I have my before each functions that call that stub. And then I actually can, and the interesting thing about it is that I can actually, because I have this stub version of local storage in my test, I can actually call get item on that and see what I would have stored in local storage. Back here.
Do you only store what is being transitioned over, or do you store the entire list of?
So we actually, it's a good question. If you look back at, so if you go back here, let's see, I'll go to my settings page, I think. I actually have the ability to click on, so there's the ability to follow brands, and you can actually like follow something and then you can unfollow it. And ad nauseum. So actually the solution we ended up coming up with was we actually store events. So we store like a follow event and then an unfollow event and a follow event. And then we store that entire chain of events. And then on that storage event, on the second browser, we just replay all those events in the sequence. And it works pretty quickly and it seems very seamless. So
Cool. Good stuff. Thanks, Scott.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, Tim, take it away.
Okay, so this is just our style guide. Here's our action button, which is just a simple button that just takes an action, and then it has a yield in it. So if I I have a simple helper that's an action helper, which says wait 1 second and then wait forever. And then it has yield, so as an inverse block, which is just so we can enforce a UI pattern of when you're loading something, show something. So it just looks like it's really simple, and this just never yields the other one. So that's cool. And then we have another one which I recently built, which is a color field, which I wasn't terribly happy with any of the existing color field implementations. So this is ours, and it just is really nice composition of Ember components and supports all sorts of things like opacities, and you can get into swatches down here also, which was cool because it just, you can see all the synced up, which is just, it's really nice to have Ember take care of all that stuff and not have to worry about syncing across all of your jQuery objects. So this is just using TinyColor, backing it with a bunch of components, which was pretty cool. It was a little hard mapping color spaces to things, but other than that, it wasn't too bad. And then we use Ace internally for all of our code editors. So this is Ace Editor, which just uses the same sort of paradigms of, so all these are data down, actions up components, which is not, I have mixed feelings about, but I've been coming around to. So these are, it's been really actually quite nice and sometimes less buggy than the two-way binding approach. So that's it.
My name's Hugh. I run a studio called Sanctuary Computer Incorporated, and we do Ember apps and React apps in the realm of music, art, and social infrastructure. It's fun. We just are going to an office on Bowery and Grand. It's like a big office. It's really cool. Anyway, if you guys want to come work with us, let me know. I always need more developers. Okay, so I wanted to just talk about a cool add-on that I don't think anyone's heard of called Ember FastBoot. I firmly believe that I can build an Ember app far faster than I can build just a regular website. So when I have projects that are regular websites, I want to make them with Ember. However, a lot of the time, they're like marketing sites and they need to have good SEO. So FastBoot is kind of the answer to that. However, so Heroku just open sourced the build pack for the Ember CLI with FastBoot, and it works really well on Heroku, but I don't like Heroku, mainly because I don't like the CLI. I don't like it. It's annoying because if I work on a lot of different client projects and I have to switch the Heroku context to whatever, it sucks. So instead I use this thing called Doku, which is an open source Heroku, which runs on this, which is kind of like, it runs on Docker, but it has this thing called Heroku-ish. And I was working with the dude, Michael Hobbs, who runs it, and we added an Ember.js build pack, which was a little bit of work because the Heroku build pack is a tar ball, and Heroku-ish didn't support tarballs until very recently, 13 days ago. But now it tests against Ember.js and against FastBoot. So to deploy, one sec, pocket mic. It's actually really easy, and I'm going to just quickly try and do it. I'm going to use this marketing site that I did for a company called DigIn here in New York. And I'm just going to add a remote here called staging, and that's just going to go to sanctuarycomputer.link, which is just a box, Ubuntu box running Doku. I'm just going to add it, and then I'm just going to do a git. I haven't tried this yet, so staging master. And what that's going to do is get received by the server. And the one thing, so let me show you a couple of little things in there. So the one thing that you need is this little .m file here that you check into the repo. And what we're doing is just exporting the build pack URL, which points to Heroku's official Ember.js build pack. And yeah, that's kind of all you have to do. Whoop. And what it does is it actually like fully builds the app on your Ubuntu box via Heroku-ish, spins it up, and you're going to have a fast-booted Ember application within about 30 minutes. It takes about 30 minutes or less to provision the server and have it running, which I think is awesome because to get around this this whole meta tag situation, we just use an add-on called Ember CLI head. And just on the route level, we go in and we've got a vegetable route here because it's a salad company. And we just add the model's metadata to the head. So that's pretty simple. And who knows how long this is going to take, but I can show you guys the production version, which I have already pushed. Let me pull it up. What is your spirit vegetable? And if you look here, check it out. We got meta tags in the source. So that's that. Pretty cool, right? So that's everything I got to say. Is there any questions? Guess not.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle. I work at Blue Apron. We're hiring, so come see me if you want a job. Okay, so very quickly, I'm going to talk about an add-on called Ember in Viewport, not Viewpoint, Ember in Viewport. So basically, what it does is I do not have a pocket, so this might be hard. So basically, those of you that were at EmberConf, there was, in the keynote, there was a lot of talk about how Ember apps are really ideal for building mobile interfaces for web applications. So, why build a mobile app which basically from the website you're redirected to the mobile app? That's really bad for UI. So basically, how can we make the web application experience better in mobile? So basically, this company, Dockyard, they have really good open source, really good blogging, all about Ember. They had created this add-on called Ember in Viewport, and it was basically perfect for what the problem that I was tasked to solve at Blue Apron. So basically, we have, I work on the team that works on our warehouse management system. And so we have this application, which is running. Hopefully, let's see. So you could see here, reload it very quickly. So basically, while this loads, what Ember in Viewport does is it kind of works like So basically, it's a mixin, which you add to your component. And basically what it does is it gives you access to a couple different methods where you can use it the same way as you would use did insert element, did destroy element. And so what it does is it detects where that component is within your screen. And so even though it's rendered, it will actually see where it is in comparison to where your screen is. So even though I might have a component that's down here that has already, let me make this larger. Oh, it doesn't go larger. Okay. So I might have the component that's already rendered down here, but it'll actually fire off once it's inserted into the screen. So 1 second. So let's say, I have this screen. This is also one of our slowest endpoints, so please bear with me. Okay, so let's say I'm a warehouse worker and I'm looking for something, looking. We want to make sure that the application is intuitive, and so it knows what the user basically is doing. So we're looking for something, we don't see it, soba noodles, no, we're looking. And so as the user is scrolling down, it's creating an infinite infinite scroll for the user. And basically, so how it's doing that is we have on our endpoint, we have a pagination. And so what it's doing is it's actually paginating the batches of these models and it's sending them back. So once a certain component, so these are all the same component. Once that component enters the viewport, it actually fires off another one and it gets the next batch in the page. So you could see here as I'm scrolling down, not all these pings and all that, but so we're scrolling, here's the next page. We're scrolling. Oh, I finally found what I'm looking for, red leaf lettuce. Okay, so we go here, we go back, that's not the one I want. Waiting, and then I still have everything I'm looking for, and then I continue to scroll down and look for what I'm looking for. Get the next page. And so basically, I can show you the component very quickly. So we have this here, Ember in Viewport. It's just a regular add-on. Ember install, Ember in Viewport. And then basically, like I said, it works the same way as did insert element. So basically, once the component enters the viewport, then it fires off this. We're still using send action. And basically, it fires off, goes to the controller, and we have our infinite scroll. That's basically it. I have some of the other kind of the methods that are available. We only use did enter viewport, but there's a lot of other stuff. That's basically it. Thank you.
Time for one question for Danielle, if anybody has one. All right, moving right along. We got 2 more to go, and then we're going to wrap up. Chris Presto, are you around? Okay. Why don't you just come up and tell people without plugging in? That's what I was thinking. And Charles, you can plug in while he's doing that.
All right, who knows what a linter is? Who uses a linter in a build? Who uses one in your editor? All right, probably most of you do. If you're using Ember, you might be using it without even realizing. So a linter is a program that's going to analyze code to look for potential errors. And there's typically a lot of them if you're not running a linter. So today we were doing some stuff at Yap where we were upgrading a few projects. We're going to newer Ember CLI versions, and in recent versions of Ember CLI, we've extracted out Ember CLI JS hint. It's a separate install, and we had sort of done that, but we were also looking towards the future for ESLint to lint our JavaScript the newest and latest and greatest way. And so we pulled that project in. We were happy with it. We added about 27 rules that we needed to disable in order to get a green build again. And we went on our way. But the point is, if you guys are working, if you're looking to do Ember CLI upgrades, or you're just kind of in that neck of the woods, the news on the street, the word on the street is that Ember CLI ESLint is in good shape, and you should check it out and use it, and it really is a big step up, and it's the way of the future. Now, moving on to CSS, who lints their CSS or whatever pre-processed CSS thing that they're using? All right. It's probably SassLint. Well, they're pronounced the same way, but SCSS lint was the older existing project. Relatively newer news, SassLint, SASS-lint is a project, and it's a thing, and it's in good shape as well. Ember CLI SassLint is that project, which is also working nicely. We pulled that into our projects today, disabled about 27 rules to get a green build again, and we're living happily. So whether or not you care passionately about spaces before and after curly braces or before and after parens, it really is amazing how many errors a linter will catch. It's just, you know, kind of simple algorithm, but it saves so many sort of dumb human instances. Even rules that you might be tempted to disable, like sorting your CSS properties. I can't tell you how many times that has revealed a duplicate rule because there were, you know, 14 different rules, and it turns out we had 2 borders specified. Obviously, the last one wins, but any person who comes in and changes a line and then doesn't understand why it's changing because there's a duplicate rule 10 lines below could obviously be forgiven. So check them out. They're in good shape. We'll do it. We'll do it together.
All right, thank you guys for waiting for me. Everybody here? All right. Okay, so uploading files used to be really, really painful for me, and I think I found a way to make it a lot less painless, so I wanted to share it with you tonight. I wrote a blog post about it in January, but I'll be doing some live coding on it tonight, which I actually, true fact, I haven't done any live coding since 2009 when it was a disaster, so we'll jump back into it and see how it goes tonight. So what we're going to try and do is upload a file to the post test server, and we're going to use an add-on called XML HTTP request, or actually Ember XML HTTP request. And that allows you to declaratively insert in your template an XHR that you can manipulate directly from handlebars. So, excuse me, I'm also losing my voice. So you can see here's this template. We have a file input that's just going to iterate over the files and select a file. So if we have, for example, this picture I have of puppies, you can see there's the name. It's not very descriptive. I downloaded it from Giphy just 15 minutes ago. And what we want to do is we want to take this file and we want to upload it to a test server. So what we're going to do is drop in this component right here. We're just going to drop in this XML HTTP request component. And what that will do is that will actually yield, let's see, XML HTTP request. What that's going to do is it's going to yield an XHR state into our template. It's going to post, the method is post, and you can see the URL that we're going to be posting to is right there. And that's going to make a bunch of, let's see, it's going to make a bunch of nice properties available to us. We can see, is the load started? Is the load ended? How many bytes have we uploaded? How many bytes are there left to upload? And finally, what are the percentage? These are all properties that are just hanging off of that XHR template. So if we give it a chance to reload and we select our puppy file again, you can see it has not started loading. It has not ended loading, and there are 0 of 0 bytes uploaded. And the reason that it's not doing anything right now is we actually have to tell it. We have to actually invoke an action to say, we want to send this file. So what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to insert a button that is going to send the file. And you can see there's an action on that XHR object called send, and we have to pass it the file object. That's just a JavaScript, like it's part of the browser file API that represents that file of the puppy's GIF. So if we select it again, we can open it up, and now if we click send on the file, let's see, let me just, do we get, okay. Well, I've got an extra N in there. Let's send the puppy file. There we go. So we just invoke the action, and you can see it's just uploading right to the server. No fuss, no muss. There are a couple extra actions that we can embed. We have an abort action to abort the XML HTTP request. So if we are happening to be uploading the file, and in the middle of uploading we decide we don't want to, we can just stop it like that. And then the same thing applies. There is a reset, and that's for the case where that's for the case where you've aborted an HTTP request and you want to start from scratch again. We can reset the request. That'll just generate a brand new request, and we can upload it again. And it's nice to have uploads not be a thing that you're afraid of, but something that's just an absolute pleasure to do. So, thank you.
All right, time for one question. Charles, I got one for you. So the one thing that disconcerts me about looking at that, it's really, really cool, disconcerts me that like there's this thing that's kind of happening that has a beginning and an end that's coming just out of the template where it seems like it could get torn down or re-rendered, you know, based on the data flowing through there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one thing you'll notice is all the side effects do happen inside actions. That was actually a refactoring that I did just recently with I mispronounced his name, Balint Erdi. So he helped me actually refactor this to be so all of the send, the abort, the reset all happen through actions. So it does abide by data down to actions up. And then if you do tear down the life cycle of the XHR is bound to the life cycle of the component.
Got it.
So if the component goes away, then
it goes away with it. Okay, cool, good stuff. Let's have a round of applause for all of our speakers tonight. Thank you for everybody for sharing. If you spoke and didn't get an exclusive sticker, come grab one now. We are going to try a different place tonight.